How are you? I'm so bad at this. I need to get a better camera angle. Hold on. I don't know
Going to.
the interview the other day and I realized that I was just staring right down into it. And I thought I need to improve this. Maybe I'll put it up on the box. Center myself so you can't see all the people behind me, and then I get my left and my right confused. Okay.
I'm going to do a quick little intro at the beginning, if that's okay, and then turn it over to you.
Okay. I just now pasted a link, or I'm getting ready to, in the chat. These are the forms they need to fill out to get CEUs.
Okay. And last I checked, we had about 60 registered today. So
great.
Hopefully we have a good turnout. Thank you very much for providing the CEUs. I didn't know that you guys could do that, but
we can. It's we've actually got a great system down. It used to take forever. Like we'd like be taking people's name and filling them into a PDF, right, save as and send. And we have this program now where we've figured out with JotForm that as soon as they complete this survey, they're going to automatically get the certificate back. So it's made it a lot easier.
That's great.
Laura, do you have me down for 1 hour? Is that
think so.
correct?
Yes, is that okay?
Oh yeah, that's fine. I might finish up a little before that even. I just want to make
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, take whatever time you need. Looks like more people are signing on. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes.
That's fine. Sounds great. Hillary, were you broadcasting this on Facebook Live?
I was trying to, but I keep getting an error message, so I don't think that's going to work.
It's okay. I have a lot of problems too.
Every time I click, it just brings up an error, and it's probably my account, but all right. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the first introduction part, and then I'll turn it over to you, if that's okay. Thank you, everybody, for logging in today and joining us. We're excited to have Sheila with us today. It is March is Gambling Prevention Month, so we're excited to offer you this webinar. We've all, I'm sure, noticed how our youth has, even over the past year, seems to be more and more online, and I don't want to say addicted, but I know for my daughter, she's very into her games online. So this is something that I think we're going to be seeing more and hearing more about in the near future. So I think it's a good idea for us to get a start on how to handle gaming and gambling prevention for our youth. So I thank you for joining us today. I want to do a quick intro about Mission West Virginia if you've never heard of us or haven't joined us for a webinar before. Our mission statement is Mission West Virginia changes the lives of youth and families. We promote positive futures by recruiting foster families, providing life skills education, and creating community connections. Currently, we have 2 programs at Mission West Virginia. The one that I believe most people are familiar with is our Frameworks program. And Frameworks helps to recruit foster and adoptive families in West Virginia. They also provide information and resources to help foster and or adoptive parents become certified. They're here to assist families as they take the first steps on their foster adoptive journey. And they also host trainings focused on adoption and kinship care, provide kinship care information manuals, and host a lending library of foster adopt materials. They are here for anyone who's, from the beginning stages of being interested in foster care or adoption to even those, who have a little bit more experience with it, but still need a little help or guidance or support. Frameworks offers all of that. And let's see, if you're interested in fostering, you can always call our office. It's 866-CALL-MWV. Or to speak to Cheryl, it's the number we just left, the 304-512-0555, or you can join our website. Cheryl is a wealth of information. She's great to talk to if you have any questions about foster care or adoption. And then there's the Think program, which is helping to host this webinar today. And the Think program has been providing evidence-based reproductive health education since 2007. We've provided over 100,000 students and adults across 29 counties in West Virginia with pregnancy prevention education services since the start of the program. We also do a lot of healthy relationship education as well. So the core areas of the THINK program are preventing teen pregnancy, HIV and STD prevention and education, healthy relationship education, and we do a lot of focus on positive youth development and parent and community education. So again, I want to thank you guys for joining us, and I'm going to hand it over to you now, Sheila, and thank you again for being here with us and doing this webinar for us today. If you have any questions about the CEUs, or if you want to obtain CEUs for social work, nursing, or LPC, is there any other? Is it just those three?
Social work, counseling, LPC, and addictions.
Okay, great. There is a link in the chat. If you will follow that link and complete the form, you'll be able to get your CEU credit that way.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Please fill that out. If you do, there are two forms. One is a really quick eval, and the other is a very short, quick, easy quiz, and it has your name on it, and that's how we automatically generate your CEU certificate. The trick is you have to do it today. It's at the very top, firstchoiceservices.org/training. If there's anyone who happens to be listening on the phone, you can easily find it on our website, firstchoiceservices.org. At the bottom, there's a training tab. And just somebody said, I don't see the links. Oh, maybe I only posted it to panelists. I'm sorry. Do you see that, Hillary? Can you repost that?
I do. Everybody see.
All right, great. Yeah, I'll make sure you all have those by the end. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mission West Virginia, who's one of our youth prevention grantees. Thank you all for inviting us. Very excited to talk to you during Problem Gambling Awareness Month. My name is Sheila Moran. I am our Director of Marketing and Communication for First Choice Services. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, there's my dog. I always forget he's there. Careful, he'll bite you. I'm legally required to do a quick infomercial for our company. I want to make sure everybody knows everything that we do here. I'll be very quick about this. Our First Choice Services is in Charleston, but we're a statewide group. We've been around for about 20 years, and we answer 16 different hotlines, 8 of which are here in West Virginia. We take about 50,000 calls per year in our little office, mainly from people in West Virginia seeking help. And many people have not heard of First Choice Services, but you've probably heard of all of our helplines, and I'm just going to mention them. 1-800-GAMBLER, of course, is what I'll be talking to you all day about, so I'll skip that for now. The Help for WV, hopefully you're familiar with. This is an addiction and mental health line for adults and kids. I know some of you work with kids, so this is important information to know. Although this line has been around for 5 years, we take about 12,000 calls per year on this call from people seeking mental health help or addiction treatment. We have now expanded and are serving children with a new children's crisis line, and it is the very same phone number. So you can call or visit online, and you can talk to a crisis counselor or helpline specialist 24 hours a day, and they can help you. A lot of people call this when they're having difficulties with their kids, like they're in a situation where they feel like they may can't even maintain a child in the house. And so our goal is to immediately connect them with mobile crisis teams and professionals around the state to help them. Our ACA Navigator program, that is, of course, where you can get low-cost private health insurance if you are unable to get it through your employer, your spouse, Medicaid, or Medicare. And for those of you who don't know, this was recently expanded so that now open enrollment is going to last until August 15th. And they have just put out some new rates, rules, and provisions, and it is just good news all the way around for everybody. Almost no matter what your income, you're going to really benefit from this. So if you need insurance assistance, please call us, because we have experts who can help you. I think we have one of our experts on here now, Maricel, who works with our problem gambling line as well as that line, but they're a big help. Our suicide prevention lifeline, I'm sure you're all aware of this, and you've probably given this number out to people you work with, especially kids, and we appreciate that. It's another 24-hour line that anyone can reach out to at any point if they're feeling like harming themselves. The Tobacco Quit line is our line to help people stop smoking. And people have asked me, can kids call it? Yes, they can. I know we have a vaping epidemic here. This line provides free quit coaching from an expert coach, and also nicotine replacement therapy, you know, the pills, the patches, lozenges, things like that. All you have to do is call the phone number. The 211 is our state social service line. We partner with the United Way of West Virginia for this line. So anyone that needs any kind of solid social service help, like assistance with rent, utilities, clothing, food, this is the line to call. It's kind of a catch-all for everything that you need, and it is also 24 hours a day. Jobs and Hope Helpline is the line that can help people who are looking for employment. This was originally established for people who are in recovery, but anyone can call it, and it's more than just a job search site. It's much more than that. They help with barriers. They do things like help, pay off DUI fines, or help with expungement, help with transportation needs, just really any kind of barriers people have to employment. They try to knock those down. So that's a great line, and it's also 24 hours. And then the last line I want to mention is our Help 304 line, the one with the little bear, and maybe you've seen the billboards for that. This is a 24-hour crisis line or emotional support line, emotional strength line. Anybody, adult or child, can call this 24 hours a day and reach a counselor. Talk about knocking down barriers to mental health treatment. I mean, it's just available for anyone. It's completely anonymous, and they're not even going to ask about insurance. So certainly urge anyone to call that. It's likely that people who are experiencing anxiety, stress, things like that, this isn't for people who need, 12 sessions of, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not that type of treatment, but it's what most people usually need in the moment, and it's available and free to all West Virginians. So, okay, with that, I'll end my required infomercial. I just want to make sure you all know about that. If any of you are curious or want to know more about any of those other lines, please feel free to email me. I'll make sure to provide that at the end, because we do a lot of outreach for all of those lines. We have a presentation, in fact, that we do specifically on all of those lines. So we're available for that if anyone's interested. Okay, here's what I'm here to talk to you about today is Problem Gambling Awareness Month. No coincidence that this is during March Madness, right? About 1 in 50 people in West Virginia are suffering with gambling addiction. I think that is probably really an undercount. That's based on a study that's maybe 20 years old and was done before most of the types of gambling we're now getting calls about are legal. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about gambling in general, gambling in West Virginia, problem gambling, and then specifically youth gaming and gambling. Gambling in West Virginia. I wish we were in person. I would do a poll. I would have you all raise your hands for these and see how much you know about gambling in West Virginia. So I always ask, how many casinos are in West Virginia? If I can hear you all yelling it out now. 2, 3, 4. The answer is 5. Most people forget about what? The Greenbrier, right? So we have 5 full-fledged casinos, and by definition, that means has slot machines, table games. These all have racing, and you can bet on sports at any of these casinos. And I said we've been around for 20 years. When we first started, before many other types of gambling were available, you could look at our calls, and they were heavily concentrated in 4 of these areas. The Greenbrier wasn't a casino yet, but in the other 4 areas, they were concentrated. And the great majority of the people calling us were playing the slot machines. Much easier for folks to kind of get used to playing that sort of thing, because it's such incredibly quick action and creates problems a little quicker. So the next question, how many VLT parlors are there in West Virginia? I think everybody knows what a VLT parlor is. You've probably seen these in your community. A lot of times these are in existing restaurants or bars, and sometimes they're little pop-up places on their own. These places have between 5 and 10 video poker machines or slot machines. How many are there in West Virginia? There are around 1,200 in West Virginia. And again, each of them have between 5 and 10 machines. Most counties have a few. I'll say there are handful of counties that don't have any. But for instance, the last time I looked here in Kanawha County, I think we had around 100 of these places. So after these became legal, and this has been maybe 20 years ago, you could, again, look at our calls, and is very, very strongly correlated with that. Most of our calls were from people, especially women, playing in video poker parlors. Ask about bingo halls. How many are there? We actually have far more bingo halls than a lot of states. We have about 100. People sometimes laugh and ask if that's real gambling, but it is. And in fact, one of the first calls I ever took was from a lady in Morgantown who had embezzled $250,000 from the law firm where she worked to play bingo. She ended up going away to Alderson for 8 months over that. So yes, bingo can be an addiction. People absolutely call us and tell us that they walk in, cash their Social Security check, and walk out with nothing. How many places are there to buy lottery tickets? About 1,500. So any restaurant, any type of, grocery store, convenience store. And you'll probably notice now that it's more of a vending machine situation, sort of the way we used to sell cigarettes. Oh, 1,500. Yes, that's the number for how many we have there. One of the newest things, online gambling and sports betting. You've probably seen these billboards up all over town, kind of depending on where you live. There's a lot of them in Kanawha and Mon County, promising that the land of newly minted millionaires. I think that was the most recent one. So that's something we're kind of battling with, because kids are very susceptible to that message. We'd all like to be a millionaire, and kids are a little more susceptible to thinking this might be an easy way to get there. So as a after this billboard came out, this was our next billboard, kind of relating to that with the little crown, "Don't be fooled, gambling addiction can cost you everything." And I should say, we're not the anti-gambling people, should be clear. I mean, we're gambling neutral. We're not saying there shouldn't be gambling, but you've just got to be really careful about the messaging. And we really like to get out in front of it, especially with young people, to talk about the types of messaging that they're seeing around gambling. I'll talk a little more about that later. A new type of gambling. This is, of course, I wish we were in person. I would say, what type of gambling is this? Robinhood. So you've heard of the Robinhood app. This is something we started getting calls on, really had not gotten a lot prior to this year. And now we have. So this is a day trading app. And a lot of people ask, what's the difference in, is the stock market really gambling? Isn't that an investment? So it depends on a lot of different factors, but there's a big difference between long-term investing and short-term investing. And with day trading, what's happened is these apps have made it very easy for people to bet all the time. We actually downloaded the app here in our office to see what it was like, and we're getting constant push notifications. Put your money here, put your money there. And so it's very easy for anyone to do all the time. And there was actually a story out about a young man who died by suicide after he spent a lot of money and was actually misinformed about how much he owed to this app. But we know that young people, not necessarily kids, but we know that young people are very involved with this, and this is very attractive to them. So is gambling an accepted youth activity? Well, if you've been to a prom or you've been to any type of youth activity, you've probably seen things like this, very common. We always say, look, you wouldn't like stack a bunch of beer cans, would you? And say that's for kids, but this is something that you see quite a bit. Usually parents say something along the lines of, well, at least they're not drinking or using drugs, and they're failing to see the type of problems that kids can have when they gamble and gamble too much. Here's an example from the now defunct Toys R Us with the poker table. Always kind of irks me when you look for when you're in the toy section of a store, that's where all of the poker information or things like that are. It's a game, so it's not considered an adult activity. This is our Christmas ad here. You see, we do this every Christmas. We say you wouldn't put beer in a stocking, would you? Why would you pet lottery tickets? So we have a big campaign against that. And the reason is because I understand how it might seem like a fun gift, but the problem is when a kid wins money that way, they think, wow, this was easy and this was fun. And that idea quickly gets planted in their head. And that's where problems can grow. So I always say, remember, it's an adult activity. Same thing with the little slot machine. I think I saw that at a Rite Aid here locally, and I took a picture of that. And it was in the kids section. I thought, why would you give that to a kid? Then the one below it, that was kind of random. That really doesn't have anything to do with gambling. But I thought, what on earth is that? That looks like it's a sucker. But isn't that a bad message? You have your little toddler sucking on the light bulbs on the Christmas tree. That was just kind of random. A little search I did about, poker, playing poker with family, and there are a lot, millions of results that came up. I think that's the issue. Since a lot of parents not only don't see this as a problem, but many people see it as a bonding experience. You'll see that a lot with dads, with their sons, with the sports betting, and then with the poker. So that, it becomes a different thing. Many people would not say, well, I'm going to drink with my kid or smoke pot with them because we're going to bond. I know some would, but most wouldn't. But this is something I think that is much more common. It's one of the posters we developed back when, and this has been a while back, that Texas Hold'em was a really big thing with kids. We had a lot of kids doing that and a lot of parents talking about that. Parents would have Texas Hold'em and poker tournaments in their basement and have kids come. And again, we just think that's sending the wrong message about an adult activity. And some statistics on teen gambling. Something like 60 to 80% of high school students have gambled. 4 to 6% are pathological, meaning they're compulsive or problem gambling. Kids are generally 2 to 4 times more likely to develop a gambling problem than an adult. And I know that that's hard to believe. I'll talk to you in a few minutes about some of the polling that we've done around that locally. I would have also thought that seemed high until I looked at our local polling and saw that it was not. This is our more recent poster, and this is a little more contemporary. So this is a kid with his phone, and as I'll talk about, that would be more likely how gambling is being done right now. 70% of high school kids have gambled for money in the last year. That's according to the National Council on Problem Gambling. 7% showing signs of a gambling problem, 5% become addicted. And of course, what we know is that just like with drugs and alcohol, the younger you start an activity like this, the more difficult it is to stop, and the more likely you are to run into addiction issues. So I'm going to talk a little bit in general right now about problem gambling, and this applies for adults as well as kids, although many of these symptoms may sound more adult-like. Kids can experience them as well. People ask, what is problem gambling? It's just continuing to do something, gambling, even though you're suffering negative consequences, very much like any other addiction. A lot of people will say, well, is it, if I drink this much, am I an alcoholic? And those of us who've worked in substance use know that it's not how much you're drinking, it's the consequences of that. Same thing with gambling. People will sometimes say, well, I'm only gambling this much, or what we hear often is, but I make this much money. Saying, if I make a lot of money, does that mean that I can't become addicted to gambling? And that is definitely not the case. We see people that have plenty of money, and we say it's just going to take you a bit longer to get to the bottom of that pile of money. And you can still have issues with time, spending a lot of time gambling, and you can still have issues with your family being upset with the amount of gambling that you're doing. So it's really not just the money amount. There are 9 symptoms. I'll just go over those briefly. And you don't have to have all 9. We say one will do you. If you just have one symptom, that's all you need. Give us a call and we can help. We unfortunately usually get calls when people have many of these symptoms. Trying to cut back gambling. Of course, no one ever calls us the first time that they ever think, maybe I've gambled a little too much. In fact, I think usually when they're looking at the 1-800-GAMBLER sign on the slot machine or the billboard or the brochure in the casino bathroom, they're probably laughing at it and thinking, I'm never going to need to call that. So it takes quite a while. Usually people call us when they have tried many different methods on their own to stop gambling. returning quickly to regain losses. This is chasing losses. And this is, I think, one of the places where people really cross over from recreational to problem gambling. We always tell people one of the rules of responsible gambling is to set a limit, stick to it. You don't go to the ATM, don't borrow money, don't gamble on credit. But what we find is that people who end up returning, trying to get back some of that money that they lost, that's one of the places where people tend to pivot to problematic gambling. Lying to friends or family about gambling, and so many people do this. I think they lie to themselves as much as anything else. We hear people tell us that they thought they were winning. And in fact, if you've known anyone who's gambled, somebody goes out to the casino, how often does someone tell you, yeah, we went to the casino, darn it, I walked out with nothing. Usually they're bragging about how much they won. And sometimes that's an outright lie. Sometimes it's just people not good with math and keeping track of the money. They might bring in $100 bill and they might hit on that machine many times and win many times, but keep plugging it back in and walk out with nothing in their pocket. But they're still going to report, hey, I won $500, and not count the fact that they don't have that in their pocket anymore. Feeling the need to bet more and more, again, similar to substance use. No one starts out drinking a case of beer a day. They might start with a beer or two, right? So that nobody starts out spending their whole paycheck in one night on gambling. They usually don't. They start out with doing the right things, setting a limit and sticking to it. And over time, that fades and they need to bet more and more money. Gambling to escape problems. We always say it's not just about the money, especially for what we call escape gamblers. We have a lot of people, somewhat more likely to be women, but not always, who call us, who tell us that they're gambling because they have a lot of things going on in their life they're trying to forget about. It might be that they were maybe they're getting a divorce, or they have empty nest syndrome, or they're going through financial difficulties, job problems, or just trying not to think about these things. And sort of the way someone might stop at a bar on the way home, they stop at a VLT place or a casino. And over time, when it becomes their main method to escape problems, when they don't have other coping mechanisms, that's when it becomes a problem. Receiving a bailout. This is anytime you ask someone else for money for your gambling. I should be clear, no one says to a loved one, please give me more money to gamble. What they say is, I need some money because I can't pay my bills. I can't pay my rent. I need grocery money. And what's really happening is they need that money because they've spent their money on gambling, and that happens quite a bit. Many people who call us tell us that their rock bottom was when they realized no one else would give them a bailout, and they actually say that was a big help to them because it helped them realize that they were not going to get any more help and they needed to call so they could learn to stop gambling. Thinking about gambling often. People who are problematic gamblers think about gambling all the time. People tell us they hear the bells and the whistles in their head at night when they're trying to sleep. And you might think, well, okay, I can understand how if you're, handicapping a race or studying sports statistics, how you could think about that all the time to try to figure it out. But you said most of your callers are doing things like slot machines and mobile gambling. So how is that, why would you think about that? Well, most people who call us tell us that they have some sort of a system. Now, obviously that system is not working, or otherwise they would not be calling us. But the systems are sometimes superstitious, sometimes bordering on delusional. Things like, well, I'll wear this kind of lipstick, or I'll tap the machine 3 times, or I'll wear my lucky shirt. But many people who call us have something like that going on. Jeopardizing relationships, opportunities. People often tell us that their spouse or loved one is ready to leave them over gambling, or that they've lost their job. We had a little place here in Charleston ask us to come up and do a training because they were located right next to Mimi's Parlor, and they said their employees were going to lunch, not just spending their lunch there, but not coming back because they were so involved in it. And they were having to let people go, so they asked us to come do a responsible gambling training with their employees. We get many calls from people who tell us that they've stolen or embezzled to gamble. That's not unusual. In fact, to be honest, anytime I see a headline that says PTA mom or Boy Scout treasurer took money, I always think, was it gambling? And the reason I think that is when people call us, they often tell us that they're desperate to get money and they take money from somewhere they shouldn't, but always with the intention of paying it back. So not defending that action, but it does seem to be the type of folks who have never had any type of criminal issue before, and their true intention is to hit big and pay that money back. But as we know, that usually doesn't happen and they end up in trouble. Final one is feeling restless or irritable when gambling, when trying to stop gambling. And this isn't necessarily, it can be physical, but usually it's more of just an irritability and anger. And you can imagine this, if you have your whole life savings wrapped up in a form of gambling and your thinking is, if you can just hit one more time, you're finally going to get everything straight and pay off your debts. Well, when you stop gambling, that fantasy is gone. And so you're left with the realization that you're going to have to make some really hard financial choices. You might be filing bankruptcy or getting another job or really cutting back. So it can be quite jarring for people. So those are the symptoms. Again, you only have to have one symptom to call us. You don't have to have all of them. Risk factors for gambling addiction. As I mentioned, many people gamble recreationally and many people don't have a gambling addiction. What usually happens is people have other things in their life that are going on and that influence them. A significant life event, again, I mentioned the person with the empty nest syndrome, that's pretty common. Somebody might say they were gambling recreationally and then something really bad happened in their life and they started using gambling as a coping mechanism. We also find people that have a history of other addictions, or people who have other mental illness, depression, anxiety, etc. They're more likely to become addicted. The other thing a lot of people don't think of is an early big win. You think that sounds great, who doesn't want to have a big win in gambling? But what happens is when people win that money, it feels so good. Not just you have extra money in your bank account, but you get a lot of attention. It's very exciting and you want to have that feeling again and again. And unfortunately, what so often happens is people go back and they plug more money in to try to have that happen again. Some of you have probably watched television shows like was a Curse of the Lottery, things like that, and you'll see stories like that on there. And we have certainly heard stories like that on our helpline. Okay, now I'm at the gaming versus gambling part, which is really the whole thing I meant to be talking to y'all about. It just takes a long preamble to get to this part. So you see our little graphic here, and this is a little bit old. We have it redesigned that has a third of it being a slot machine. So, being a cell phone, to sort of show how these things have all come together. So what is the difference in gaming and gambling? Well, technically, gaming is supposed to be something that has a skill. Think about playing a video game where you have to be really good to get to the next level, whereas gambling is something that depends on chance. Like playing a slot machine where you're hitting a button and you cannot defeat the random number generator. But this is not always the case. These two things have come together to the point where it's hard to tell them apart. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I know that you're all working with, or many of you are working with kids, and certainly you've seen the increase during the pandemic of kids. I mean, let's be honest, all of us, including adults, on our machines all the time, right? On the iPads, on the iPhones, and probably kids spending a whole lot more time gaming than they used to. So this is a diagnosis from the World Health Organization. It is technically, I think, not in the DSM yet, but I'm sure it will be. If you look at the symptoms of gaming disorder, they almost exactly mirror the symptoms that I just went through with gambling disorder. Minus the money part, they're very similar. And it is, again, all about how much time you're spending and what impact that it's having on your life. So I'm sure that you're all familiar with this in your personal life. The reason we're concerned about it, because video gaming and gambling have converged. What I mean by that is that it's difficult to tell them apart. And I have a picture here of, we took this, I think, in an airport, and this is actually gambling, but it looks a lot like the type of gambling some of us may have done as a child. I have to say that I did a video recently and I mentioned modern gambling that kids are doing. And I think I had this slide up, and one of my coworkers who's much younger laughed at me and said, I have some news for you. Pac-Man is not modern gambling. So I guess that's the last video game I played. But if you look at this, it very much looks like something that a kid would play. It looks like a video game. Most gambling machines have elements that look very much like gaming, and that also goes for things that are on mobile devices. Of course, the people who design these have had to change them to make them more appealing. You see the games that young people are playing today, so they've had to enhance the gambling so that it matches that. So that can be difficult to tell, but on the other hand, gaming now has many features that are gambling related. And I'll go through some of those. So what is freemium? I'm sure you've all heard of this. This is, even if you haven't heard the term, you understand it. It's when you get a game that is free and there are upgrades, and so there are upgrades with the different levels of the game. There are upgrades with, getting a different skin, getting a different color to this or that, or whatever you're trying to do. So now this by itself is not gambling. That is outright paying for something that you're getting. The thing that it does, though, is it gets people, especially young people, used to the idea of hitting a button to get a little something extra in their electronic game. Then there are social casino games, and I'm sure you've all seen ads for these. And there are usually no age restrictions on these because they're free to play. So there are microtransactions. When you play these, you're going to have to pay a little bit more to get to the next level or to get some more playing time. And you're not actually winning a jackpot, but these games make a lot of money, and they all, you can see the pictures here, they all mimic gambling. They all feel like you're gambling. And I'll tell you, years ago when these first came out and we were dealing with people recovering from gambling, we would get questions like, can I just play these? Wouldn't that be better? I'm not spending money. And to be honest, I can remember telling people, sure, that sounds like harmless. It sounds like that would be better than all the money you're spending at the casino. But I was wrong. We've had, I've gone to many conferences now where people talk about this, and they found over a quarter of people who are playing these go on to play real gambling games. What happens is people play them and they think, this is so much fun, and gosh, what if these were real? What if I actually get onto a real one? Then I'm going to make some money. And these are legal here in West Virginia now. I don't even think I had this in the beginnings. These type of, any of these, not just the social casino games, but actual casino games. So you can play, you've probably seen the billboards of the television commercials. I think it's MGM, one of those where you can actually go online and you can play, whether it be a slot machine or roulette, things like that. And so a lot of people are doing that. In fact, during the last year, we were just looking at our statistics and callers, and online gambling in general, as well as mobile gambling on sports, has just about overtaken the traditional slots and video poker parlors. So many people are playing online, and many people may be starting with this type of casino game. And again, it's especially enticing to kids, and there are no age limits on a lot of those games. But what is a loot box? This is another, when I say there are gambling elements in games, this is what I'm talking about. And if we were in person, again, I would ask you all to raise your hand. It's funny because the room is often divided by age. You can put the younger people all raise their hand that they know just what a loot box is. And the older folks, say people my age, have not heard of this unless they know it from their kids. So what this is, a short explanation. I have the little graphic up here. And this is a little different than the freemium that I discussed. Remember, the freemium is you're just outright buying something that you want. This is different because it's a chance to buy something. So for instance, I know they have this in NBA games. They have this in pretty much every game at this point, that you can buy a pack, let's say a pack of cards in an NBA game, and you're hoping to get some favorite player that you really want, but it doesn't say you're going to get that player. You're going to pay $5 and maybe you're going to get that player. And it's not always $5. It can be 10, 20. I've seen these for 100. So you're paying, really hoping you get the thing you want, whether it be the skin or the next, new color on your car, but you may not get it. And so what happens when you don't get it and you just spend that money? Well, darn it, try again and again and again. So that's how it works. And if that sounds like gambling, we think it does too. It's a somewhat controversial topic. This type of loot box has been banned in many countries. It is not banned here, and it is in most of the games that kids are playing. And if you have kids or work with kids who ask for things like iTunes or Xbox or all different kinds of gift cards, it's likely that that's the sort of thing they're spending this money on. Or if their account is tied in with your credit card and you see charges, it's likely that's the sort of thing they're spending money on. Esport, just to touch on this, if you're not familiar, again, this is something I ask people if you heard of. Most people think that it's watching football online, but it is actually playing video games online. And this has become, much like basketball or football, this has become a sport for kids, and it's become very popular for kids to watch other people play. They have platforms like Twitch where they watch other people play these games. The concern with that is that many people, kids, are now betting on these esports as they watch them. This is this picture here on the right is a world tournament, Overwatch. Prior to the pandemic, they were filling whole stadiums with people watching other people play video games. And one of the things that happens also is that kids, young people or anybody, they bet on skin. So what that means is, to get the new gun or the new outfit or the new thing that you want for your character, you can purchase a skin. Well, a lot of people are getting these and going to, it's not eBay, but eBay-like sites where they're auctioning them off and buying those. So it's become a really big money industry. I mentioned to you that we had a survey. I don't have our, I didn't upload the most recent ones, but we have grantees. I think I mentioned that in the beginning. We have about 18 or so grantees in the state, people who are working with us, working with kids around the state. These are groups like Mission, West Virginia, groups that are already working with kids on, whether it be reproductive health issues or alcohol, drugs, drunk driving, things like that. And so we gave them small grants and said, please add gambling addiction to the things you talk to kids about. So this was from 2019 survey, and this was 1,500 participants that we had in middle or high school. And we got some interesting answers to our questions, and these are just a very few of them that we've received. And we asked kids, if they've done these things, and you can see that about half had said that they did bet. I'm sorry, I think the green is a yes, that they did bet on personal challenges. Sporting events, that was about a third of kids said that they bet on sporting events. And this was before the legalization of mobile sports betting, which is really big right now. And we asked, if you bet, why did you bet? Those that did, some said entertainment, 20% said to make money. So again, this was before giant billboard campaigns telling them they can be a millionaire. So I'm curious to know what that would be right now. How often you gamble? Fortunately, not much, but even just a little. I mean, this is right on par with the statistics I was giving you from the National Council on Problem Gambling. And we asked them about how much time they spend gambling or any symptoms. And again, it might be small percentages of that, but look at that. I have borrowed money because of my gambling. And that's 42 strongly agreed, 48 agreed. And this was, out of 1,500. So that's a pretty big number. I think I should gamble less. So already that's a symptom thinking I need to cut back. 174 strongly agreed, 82 agreed. Many think this is before the pandemic. I can only imagine now people who have kids saying that they feel like they spend too much time online. We know we as parents or caregivers sometimes think that they spend too much time online, but I think the headline here is that a lot of kids think they spend too much time online and they would like some guidance not spending as much time online. And many have indeed spent money on loot boxes and things like that and feel like they spend too much money. Just a little bit about what we do to help people from gambling. I talked about the prevention program. Other than that, we do work with casinos and gaming operators. We try to get our information out there, but even though we do television and billboards, things like that, it's difficult to compete with the really strong message, again, that you can be an instant millionaire. So we need to do more and more. And unfortunately, this is just something right now that most people are not recognizing as a big issue. So working with groups like you all, hoping to get the message out, because we can't do it alone, to let people know that this is a big issue. We need to get in front of kids and do some basic training for kids. I mean, I know kids don't get a lot of information in general in school on finances, how to balance a checkbook, that stuff anymore. I guess they don't even have checkbooks, how to balance your debit card, but they certainly are not, outside of us, getting much information on problem gambling. When people call our helpline, and I'm going to clarify that they can call for gaming as well. We just had a conversation. I asked our director, Jennifer, about this. I said, well, what do we do now? We're the gambling hotline, not the gaming hotline, but can we help people who are saying that's just gaming? And we agreed that at this point, because of the convergence of the two, and they're nearly indistinguishable, that we can help with that as well. And that is something that our counselors are trained in. In fact, many are working on extra certifications right now, specifically in gaming. All of our counselors to be in our network have certification from us that they're experts in treating gambling. And so they're also, most of them, working now on becoming experts in treating gaming addiction too. So what happens when people call us? We have a full range of services. We are lucky here to have a wonderful program in West Virginia. Our 1-800-GAMBLER line is 24 hours a day. We have chat at 1-800-GAMBLER.net, and we have the phone services. When you call, you talk to someone who is a real expert in problem gambling. You can talk to them anonymously. You can get some guidance from them where you're at with this. You can even call if you're a loved one. We get about 30% of our calls from loved ones of problem gambling. We have help for them too. And then if you decide you want treatment, we have that as well. We have the network counselors that I talked about. We have about 50 statewide. And at this point, we have telehealth widely available. So probably there's a counselor near you, but even if there's not, we have telehealth, so you can have that support as well. It's always free for the first session, and then after that, if for any reason you're unable to pay, difficulties with insurance, we can pick up the bill for that, pay for up to 20 sessions for people who are gamblers and up to 10 for loved ones of problem gamblers. And we have a lot of other things available. We have weekend retreat seminars we do a couple times a year, which is a wonderful mini inpatient experience. We have groups available in person and online. So all of that is available for free to anyone who calls us. A few things to remember. I mentioned it's Problem Gambling Awareness Month. We really, really want to get the word out about especially issues with youth. So if you are so inclined, please go to our website, 1-800-GAMBLER.net, and we have posters there that you can print. But also, if you would like shiny new posters or cards or brochures, I am happy to mail those to you. My email is there, smoran@firstchoiceservices.org. Please send me an email and say, send me some shiny materials, and I will send them all to you that you can post. You know, they all live here in our storage room right now, and they don't do much good in the storage room, so we would like to get them out. All right. All right. Okay. I finished in time to take some questions. That was a lot of information, and I know I talk kind of fast. What questions does anyone have? So I'll turn on the chat here, and you have the survey. Yes, I'm going to remind everybody again. She put it to everyone, firstchoiceservices.org/training. Please take that. because that's the only way we can get you a CEU, and you have to do it today. That's the caveat. All right. Any questions at all? Anybody want to share anything? Have you talked to, oh, somebody said, do you find a gap between girls and boys? Very interesting. So gender, usually most states say they have more men than women call. But in West Virginia, it has usually been 50-50. And I think that's probably because we have the type of gambling that appeals more to women, like the slot machines and the video poker parlors. However, just in the last year, that switched for the first time ever. And we had, I think it was like 55% men, 45 women. So that's interesting. Now, as far as kids, boys and girls, studies do show that boys are more inclined to gamble. And I think part of that is because the type of gambling that is more popular among kids would be things like poker and things like sports betting and mobile sports betting. And those things tend to be somewhat male dominated, whereas women tend to do things more like slot machines. And that's a little harder for kids. Young kids aren't breaking into the casinos. So that makes sense that it would be more boys than girls. That's a good question. Thank you, Sean. What else? Do I have any more questions about anything? Anything in the gambling or the gaming world or the first choice world? Do we have a certificate? Yes. So here's what you've got to do. Up here, scroll up a little in the chat and you'll see the link, firstchoiceservices.org/ or is that / whatever that is, the slash and the training. You can go to our website, firstchoiceservices.org, and there's the training tab at the bottom where the link is right there, and you've got to press that. When you go to it, there are 2 little surveys, very short. It'll take you less than, I'd say, 3 minutes to do both of them. And one of them says CEU fulfillment, so you got to do that. And that's the only way you can get it, and you have to do it today. And this is okay. All right. Got that? Good. Yeah, if we get off here and any of you can't get the link, just again, First Choice Services, and you'll see the training link at the bottom. All right. If we don't have any training, any more issues, I'll let you go. Let me do one more thing. I'll put my, see if I can, oh, thank you again for posting that. Can I post mine? See if I can post this to everyone. I want to put my email in here. Moran at firstchoiceservices.org. Yeah, please email me if you want shiny new posters. And I should point out, if you didn't get enough of this today, this is the part where I tell you this presentation was the B- version of the real presentation. We have a big presentation coming up in a few days on, it's on our website, 1-800-GAMBLER.net, and I think it's on our training tab as well. And it's going to be actually better than this. It's going to be, we have panelists from around the world who are going to be on this, and it is a half day, and we are offering a CEU. We're going to have a guy named Cam Adair, who is one of the most fascinating speakers I've ever heard, who himself is recovering from gaming addiction. He's a young guy who talks about what he went through as a gamer and how it relates to gambling addiction. Julie Hines, who is fantastic. I stole probably half my presentation from her, and she explains it better than me. So it's really, really worth your time. Again, the information, it's free, and it's on our website, 1-800-GAMBLER.net, if any of you are interested in learning more about this. I know I have a couple
registered for that. I think a couple of us here at the office are registered. Okay. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's very good. Lisa, Marisol, did I miss anything? I know you all are on here. I saw you sneak on there. I saw your names. Okay. All right. That's all I have then. Thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you for hanging out with us. I appreciate it. It was a great presentation. And thank you everybody else for joining us, and look for more webinars coming up. We hope to host a virtual conference at the end of May. So y'all look for more information about that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.